I've spoken many times about the importance of Sabdo Palon and how the Muslim rulers of Java must remain free, just and free of corruption. There exists another important prophecy originating with King Jayabaya. It suggests that the world as we know it will come to an end, prior to affluence being restored, when Java is subsumed by water. At the latest and the end of the year, before the end of the world, it would cometh down a god, a deva, deva, who becometh the king and that hath human body, his face like the Batara Krishna, his character is like a Baladewa, his weapon is a Trisula Wedha. That is the sign of changing times. Each gent returneth their loans, payeth their debts, liveth for a liveth, shy for a shy. The Jayabaya prophecies still have great influence on the minds of many Indonesians today, because much of what has been predicted has come true. Flash floods occurring everywhere, mounts erupt suddenly. Thither is no notification. It all has very much hates and a false mediate priest without eating and sleeping, because the priest is afraid his secret will beast uncovered. The prophecies play a crucial role in critical circumstances, including colonization, political crisis, and power transitions, functioning as both spiritual guides and instruments for analysing the historical trajectory of Javanese society. Such prophecies, Django Woken, became very popular following the turmoil of World War II and Indonesia's fight for independence. Jayabaya's prophecies have served as an ideological instrument to enforce the legitimacy of authority. In the conventional Javanese political framework, the king served as both an administrative leader and a spiritual entity, regarded as the embodiment or representative of supernatural forces. Interpretations of these prophecies frequently associate the king with cosmic concepts, including world equilibrium and divine fate, thereby rendering the excised power as both political and sacred. Indeed, it's possible that they were encouraged by the Japanese as they were painted in a somewhat positive light. The Jayabaya prophecy, or Janka Jayabaya, is a collection of Javanese manuscripts attributed to King Jayabaya of the Kediri kingdom, who ruled in the 12th century, circa 1135 to 1157. Jayabaya, or Jayabaya, Javanese spelling Ratu Joyoboyo, was the Javanese king of the Kediri kingdom in East Java, who ruled from around 1135 to 1159 CE. That's 2 years later than I just said. With the title of Abhiseka, used is Sri Mahajara Sang Mahapani, Jayabaya Sri Womawara, Madhusudana, Atawa Intiya, Sudatrisiya, Pakarama, Untuga Gedawa. And I'm sure I've got that wrong, but I'm not going to repeat it. The reign of King Jayabaya is considered the zenith of the Kediri kingdom. King Jayabaya is credited with the reunification of the Kediri kingdom, following a division caused by the death of his predecessor, Erlanga. And known for his just and prosperous rule, King Jayabaya was reputed to be an incarnation of Hindu deity Vishnu. He epitomised the archetypal Ratu Adil, the just king who is reborn during a Jaman Edan era of madness, a dark age of suffering to restore Jaman Rahaja, a time of social justice, order and harmony. The Javanese believed in a cyclical history where epochs of prosperity, Jaman Raharaja, are followed by eras of suffering, Jaman Edan, eventually returning to prosperity again. Jayabaya named his kingdom Widabara, meaning 1,000 cities, centres in Pemenang, modern-day Kediri Regency. Records blending fact and myth indicate that his father, King Jayabaya, the revolutionary, claimed descent from Pandavas, from the Hindu epic Mahabharata. His lineage is traced to Arjuna, the third Pandava brother, who himself was a son of the god Indra. He was said to be the son of Udana, son of Praksit, son of Abdihamyu, son of Arjuna, from the Pandava lineage. Due to this, Jayabaya was believed to have powerful magical talent, which led to his ability to see far into the past and far into the future. From Jayabaya's queen consort, Dawi Sara, he had 4 daughters, Jaya Amijaya, Dawi Pramesti, Dari Pramuni, and Dari Sasanti. Jari Amijaya married King Astradharma Pramasti Yawastina, whom she both bore, Malawapati, the king of Alingdwarma. In his old age, Jayabaya had abdicated and chose a life of meditation as a Hindu recluse, seeking Moksha, spiritual liberation, and embracing his role as an incarnation of Vishnu. He retreated to the village of Menang in the Pagu sub-regency of Kendiri, which remains a revered pilgrimage site according to the Kajawan belief system. In later history, both Sukarno and Suharto meditated extensively in Menang to seek the aura of kingly legitimacy and Jayabaya's blessings or powers. Ratu Jayabaya is most famous for the prophecies attributed to him, including the Serat Jayabaya Musarara, Serat Pranitiwakaya, and some others that remain debated. The Manalaga prologue of the renowned Kakawin Bharata Udaya names King Jayabaya as the patron of the 2 poets, Umpu Sedu and Umpu Panalu, who authored the work. Jayabaya is also credited as the author of the Prembalang Jayabaya, a prophetic book that played an influential role during the Japanese occupation. According to selectively abridged set of stanzas within the Jayabaya prophecy, all are extremely long epic poems. This will occur when the carriages run without horses. Could that be cars? Ships fly in the air. Could that be planes? And the tenor Jawi Kawalung Wesi, Java wears an iron necklace, often interpreted as the construction of railway tracks across Java. The Javanese would be ruled by white people for 3 centuries and by yellow dwarfs for the lifespan of a maize plant, prior to the return of Ratu Adil, whose name must contain at least 1 syllable of the Javanese Noto Negoro. The just king Ratu Adil, the rise of the legendary leader, sometimes called Satrio Piningit, the Hidden Knight, will rescue Indonesia from crisis, restore justice, and usher in a peaceful era. When the Japanese occupied the Netherlands East Indies in the early weeks of 1942, many Indonesians celebrated seeing the Japanese army as the fulfillment of a prophecy attributed to Jayabaya. He had foretold a time when white men would establish their rule over Java and oppress people for many years, only to be driven out by yellow men from the north. According to Jayabaya, these yellow dwarfs would remain for 1 crop cycle, interpreted as 3.5 years, corresponding to the duration of Japanese occupation, after which Java would be free from domination. To most Javanese, Japan was seen as a liberator, as a prophecy appeared to be fulfilled. The Japanese freed Indonesian nationalists from Dutch presence and employed them as civil servants and administrators. By late 1944, however, it became clear that Japan could not win the war. On the 9th of August 1945, Japan officially transferred its authority to Indonesia to prepare for independence. and the commander of Japan's Southeast Asian forces, appointed future President Sukarno as chairman of the Preparatory Committee for Indonesian Independence. Many believe the arrival time for Ratu Adil is near, as the prophecies foretell. This figure is expected to rescue and reunite Indonesia after a period of acute crisis, ushering in a new golden age. Various leaders, including Sukarno and Joko Widodo, have been associated with the Ratu Adil figure by their supporters to bolster their legitimacy. These prophecies are central to Javanese mysticism and are often invoked during times of trouble. The prophecies describe a cyclical progression of time, famously foretelling the following events and societal shifts, including the prophecy divides time into three major eras. The beginning age, the Kali Sawa, age of sound, which is 1 to 700 Saka. In Java, there were many natural sounds, such as uproars, noises, thunderbolts and lightning, and many miraculous events. It was because many beings became gods and goddesses and descended to the earth to become human beings. The Middle Ages, the Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness, 701 to 1400 Saka. Many changes occurred on the earth and small islands emerged. Many creatures roamed around as the dead were reincarnated. The last age, the Kali Sangara, the Age of Downfall, 1401 to 2010 Saka. Lots of rain would fall and many rivers and streams swell. The earth would lose its beneficial state, postponing the arrival of happiness and depleting the sense of gratitude of people. Many people would hold knowledge and die. Each of these divided into smaller ages. The Kali Sara, the Age of Sound, was divided into the Kali Kukila, the Century of Birds, 1 to 100 Saka. People's lives were like that of birds, and the stronger were the winners. Since there were no kings, there were no people who were ruled or governed. The Kala Buddha, the Century of Buddha, 101 to 200 Saka. Javanese people came to believe in Buddha, following the law of Hyang Jadadanata, an Indian teacher. Calabrawa, the Century of Light, 201 to 300 Saka. People in Java set up to worship Hindu gods who had descended to earth and spread knowledge. Kala Titira, Century of Water, 301 to 400 Saka. Big flooding occurred, the sea overflowed, and land and earth became split in two. The west part of the island was called the island of Sumatra. A lot of water sources such as spring, lakes, etc. emerged. Kali Subara, Century of Eccentricity, 401 to 500 Saka. Many strange phenomena happened on human beings. Kala Rebawa, Century of Bustling, 501 to 600 Saka. People in Java created activities in arts, etc. Kalapura, Century of Beginning, 601 to 700 Saka. Many plants grew. Descendants of giants who had turned to ordinary people started to become big again. The Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness. Kalabrata, Century of Asceticism, 701 to 800 Saka. People experienced to live as hermits. Kaladaura, Century of Door, 801 to 900 Saka. Many people were inspired to become clever to explain invisible king things. Kaladuapa, Century of Miracles, 901 to 1000 Saka. Many impossible things happened. Kara Praniti, Century of Checking, 1001 to 1100 Saka. Many people emphasized study. Kala Tetaka, Century of Immigrants, 1101 to 1200 Saka. Many immigrants would come from other countries. Kala Wasia, Century of Ruler, 1201 to 1300 Saka, many people would be punished. Kala Wisaya, century of slander, 301 to 14,000 Saka, 1400 Saka, many people would slander each other. And then the Kali Sangara, the age of downfall, the Kala Janga, century of poet, 1401 to 1500 Saka, many people would aim at greatness. Kala Sakti, century of magic, 1501 to 1600 Saka, many people would aim at supernatural power. Kala Jaya, century of glory, 1601 to 1700 Saka, many people would aim at power for the backbone of their life. Kala Bendu, century of warmth, 1701 to 1800 Saka, many people would like their arguments and eventually harbour hostile feelings. Kala Suba, century of happiness, 1801 to 1900 Saka, the island of Java would begin to prosper without difficulties and many people would be in a good mood. Kala Sumbaga, century of fame, 1901 to 2000 Saka, many people would become famous, clever and great. Kala Surasa, century of gentleness, 2001 to 2010 Saka, the island of Java would be peaceful, prosperous and ordered. Many people would be warm-hearted. Modern interpretations of the Jayabaya prophecy transcend cultural heritage and traditional political legitimacy. The prophecies mirror contemporary societal anxieties regarding multifaceted political, economic, ecological and moral crisis, while also facilitating the creation of alternative narratives beyond the official state framework. Consequently, Jayabaya serves not merely as a prophecy of destruction, but can also be interpreted analytically as a cultural instrument for redefining the dynamics of the common people, the state and the future. Jayabaya's interpretation can be viewed as a form of symbolic resistance against prevailing narratives that prioritise stability and progress. When the community crisis experiences conflicts with the narrow official state narrative, this prophecy is reinterpreted as a tool for cultural and political dissent. Such interpretations correspond with counter-narrative theoretical framework wherein marginalised groups employ conventional symbols to assert their agency while repudiating the state's exclusive authority over historical and future interpretations. In this context, Jayabaya's prophecy functions as a means of expressing aspirations, grievances, and hopes overlooked in state discourse. Thus, Jayabaya's prophecy transcends its status as a static text, serving instead as an alternative framework for interpreting destruction, not as a conclusion, but as a stage of social regeneration that facilitates the emergence of a new order.